Alright, so the goal of this video is to really quickly go through how to create that sphere from the Revolve homework and show you maybe why some of the issues you were having came up. So I'm going to start with two examples of problems that I saw people having, and then I'll show you how to do it correctly for the third one. So the first problem that I saw was that people, when they were creating their sketch to Revolve, they ended up doing a 3-point arc. And this by itself is not a problem. But what I saw on some people was that they didn't have the same distance from this top to the bottom here, so it wasn't like perfectly symmetric. And then they got kind of half circles that weren't truly half circles. And so, I could revolve this. Remember, you need a sketch region, so we would need to create a line to close this off. And then we also need a revolve axis, so we would need a construction line to revolve this around. And you could revolve this. So if you did this, you wouldn't get an error, but you'd notice that it would look weird. So when we choose the revolve axis, we choose our construction line, and we get something, but this something is kind of weird. It's not a perfect sphere. And again, it was that because we didn't have a perfect half circle that we were revolving. Okay, so that could have been one issue that you had. If it didn't look perfect and you use a 3-point arc, you'll see how to do it correctly just using a full circle and then cutting that in half. But let's move on to the second error that I saw. And so the people who did this were really close to having the correct sphere, but they forgot to do part of it. So these people started with like a center point circle right at the center, made it a certain diameter, and then they put in their construction line next. But then after having their construction line, they immediately went to the revolve. So they chose revolve, they chose the face, and then the revolve axis, and you get an error. And the error says revolve 1 did not regenerate properly. The revolve would create a self-intersecting part. That means that it would intersect or it would run into itself. And that makes sense if you think about it. If we're revolving this in a circle, we could get halfway around, but as soon as we get halfway, we're going to start running over what we already did with the other half. Okay? So if you got this error and you were really, really close, all you needed is actually 1-2 more little things, but you would not be able to revolve that full circle around there. And you won't be able to revolve anything that's going to intersect itself. So if you get that error, then it means that you probably did something on the other half of your revolve line, and that's not going to work. Okay, so let's go ahead and go on to the right way to do this. So the right way to do this would be starting on the front plane, creating that center point circle sketch, but this time, before we do the mirror, and before we do the rotational axis, we're actually going to cut this exactly in half. So the way I'll know that is I can just go straight up. I did a center point circle, so I know that that's in the center. And now I have half of this. So I can go ahead and trim the other half. If I use the trim tool, I can go ahead and trim that out. And now, when I do my revolve axis, and I actually do the revolve, what we'll see is that we get a perfect sphere. Okay, so that's just kind of a few pointers there. I know that several people were having some issues, so I wanted to create a short video to help you kind of figure that out. So hopefully that helped you, and we will see you in our next class.